Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishvaro Guratmeti Moti Veda Vibhagine Vyomabda Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Sava Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanantam Satguru Pranatoshmaham Om Om Shanti 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 Om. Namaste. Good day everyone. And we meet again our second class on Panchadasi. We begin from where we stopped last time. And we are still going through the introduction of Panchadasi before we enter on the first verse of Vidyaranya Swami. What did you say? La connessione non è buona? No. Connection is not good? Is that all right? Yeah. Let's hope it holds well. I'm here home. I just got back. And I'm already on the works of get to improve this internet situation here. So, as I said, giving continuity to the introduction into the Panchadasi, we go to the paragraph, say experience. Experience, breaking down experience. It is but a conscious subject associated with object. We know that there is a conscious subject. The goal of our effort, our Vedantic effort, is to properly define the subject. We want to make sure that the subject is not any one of those five koshas, but it is the consciousness that infuse the five koshas to bring about contact with the world of objects, and so consciousness can have a good time experiencing itself in duality. It is a fact that we are conscious, aware, sentient beings. So we have no doubt about that. Everybody, every one of us experience sentience. We know that I know and I know that I know, I exist and I know that I exist. And the fact that I can perceive my environment and choose or determine what kind of response to give to the stimulus coming from the environment, it's a clear indication that I'm a conscious, intelligent being to the best of my ability. So we have a kind of a will to experience. This willingness to experience is actually what keeps samsara going, which keeps, Maya and the universe standing, is the willingness that we human beings have for experience. So now we are defining ourselves with this association with Maya, and so that we can understand better. Can we stop or turn it off, no? So I was saying we have this desire to experience our existence. Isn't it interesting? We know we exist. We know we are conscious, sentient beings, and we have a desire to keep experiencing our conscious existence. Isn't it interesting? So it's this desire that makes us, naturally desire to contact the world of objects, because in the due course of having an experience with consciousness through the different means or agents, we develop preference for certain objects and distaste for some others. And that's what actually bounds us to experience. So we like experience because when I experience objects, what I'm experiencing, which is the most precious to me actually, I am experiencing my existence and I love to exist. Isn't it, David? We all would like to exist forever, experiencing. But somehow Maya does not allow that. It says, so you're going to experience your conscious existence, but every one of these agents, of these mediums, are time bound. And the whole key of human life is to detach from the body-mind construct, more specifically from the physical body, so that we can live more peaceful and enjoy our stay here as a jiva, as a jivatma, as a jiva being. So therefore, we break down now our conscious subject witnessing, non-experiencing consciousness from the objects of the experience and from the experience itself. So it begins saying that it is a fact that we are conscious, we are aware, we are sentient. It's also a fact that consciousness comes in contact with 5 kinds of objects. So we're talking about the 5 senses. The 5 kinds of objects are the objects that developed from the 5 basic primary elements. So the 5 elements, when the universe came into place, and when Maya begins projecting everything with the help of Ishvara, and then we have the 5 elements in place, space being the first one. And then each one of these elements was not really a complete job, let's say, if there were no sense organs to capture those elements. What is the purpose of a creation without the agent to experience creation? And then, of course, Ishwara understood that. So now, I came this far to create the physical material world, and now I need to create someone, an aspect of myself, which is even closer to be like me, that can experience my play, my show. So out of each one of these elements develops the organ to capture that element. So we know that space, air, fire, water, earth are the 5 elements, and the space is going to give rise to the ability we have to hear, because the space, the nature of the space is a little sound. Some say that is but this does not matter. But sound comes from space, from air. We are able to feel the air, and then we develop the, how you say in English, I escaped now. When you touch something, the skin has the ability to texture, to capture texture, to capture, I forgot in Portuguese because I have been teaching so much Portuguese.
Perception.
Tato,
Perception.
No. Huh? No.
I said it's perception, sense perception.
Yeah, I know. 5 sense perception. So we're going to hear the sound. We're going to feel the air. So feel the air requires the skin, and we have a name in Portuguese that I forgot in English, which allows us to touch the surface of objects. So does anybody remember the name of the organ of the skin that allows us to now just a moment.
Are you talking about the tactile?
Yes.
Epidermal?
Yeah.
Tactile?
Yeah. So we can touch things because we have a skin, and the skin developed out of air. So, and then we had the fire, and the fire was there for what? For revealing the objects, the name, the colors and forms of objects, but the illuminator, the physical illuminator, the fire element was there to illuminate objects, but for what? For the jiva, and the jiva need a sense organ to capture color and form. So, and then from the fire was developed the eye, the pair of the eyes we see through, and then the water developed the taste, the ability to taste food and taste everything and bring something to our mouths, and then we can enjoy it. And the earth, once the elements grossify to combine and grossify to become earth, and then out of the earth came the smell, the perfumes of the earth. And then, of course, we need to develop the smelling faculty, ability to smell the earth. So this is development of the objects, the 5 categories of objects, which gave rise to the 5 sense organs and instruments to contact each one of these physical elements. The object accessible to the ears is sound. The object of the skin is touch. Touch is what the word I was looking for. The object of the eyes are forms and colors. The object of the tongue is taste. The object of the nose is smell. 2 factors determine how consciousness contacts the object. 2 factors are the sense organs, and the sense organs, whichever sense organ is needed. Sometimes we get in contact with an object that involves 2, sometimes 3 sense organs. Okay, sometimes 4. It all depends, because depending on the object, they are going to have smell, the shape, color, and then sometimes they make some sound. So it all depends on the object. But generally speaking, the object is going to open up one of those 5 channels. So Ishvara does that in automat. So naturally, it's going to connect each one of the sense organs with its respective object. And sometimes with some objects, when it involves 2 or 3 channels of organs of contact, and then it opens up, and then we can capture the color, the sound, the smell of one object, and then we have the experience of the object. So all of that depends of a conscious subject, and the object which comes with which is, I mean, when we say that the object is not an object, but the object is its properties. So when we experience the object, we don't really experience the object, but the properties of the object. But then we come and we say, but we experience the object. Why we experience the object? Because the mind is there to coordinate, to integrate, to organize those sense perceptions and bring it into one single experience. So I say, oh, I experienced the cat. You understand? So that's how experience takes place with these 2 factors, consciousness and the sense organs, and then we have the object. The type of thought. Okay, now this is a very interesting analysis. 2 factors determine how consciousness contacts the objects, the sense organs, whichever sense organ I consciousness choose to operate gives me access to the objects that it reveals and denies access to the other object. So it naturally does so. So it opens up the channels that we need to contact that object, and the mind needs that later on to integrate this input, this data, so that it can have the experience once it determines what kind of object it is experienced. But if we remove the mind, the sense organs, which are not really sentient, The experience comes through the mind. The mind is a good sentient being because of what? Because the mind has the Atma reflect in the subtle body. So the Atma is in the mind, is in the Jiva. Okay, Jiva Atma is the intellect, is the mind, and it's something other than the sense organs and the reflecting apparatus. The Jiva Atma is something altogether like Paramatma because it is a conscious being and it enjoys a sentience which comes from original consciousness, as we know. And it is this mind, this conscious, intelligent mind that can integrate the sense perceptions and not only say like, oh, I'm experiencing this property. No, it integrates to say like, no, I know what I'm experiencing because I'm an intelligent being. The type of a thought, there are two factors. A, the sense organs, and B, the type of thought in the mind determines the type of object I wish to contact. The type of thought is driven by an unconscious desire for the object. So it's saying here that we have consciousness, we know, and then we have two other factors that allows consciousness to contact and experience the object. The first one are the sense organs themselves, and the other is the thought. So this is very interesting. And then it says, the type of thought in the mind determines the type of object I wish to contact. And the type of thought is driven by an unconscious desire for the object. Again, we go into that feedback loop, the circle, the cyclical thing. So I have a thought, and it's unconscious, and I want really to see a cat. I'm thinking of my cat. My cat has gone out, and I don't see it, for example. And then I have a thought. It came from my unconscious mind. And then what happens? What happens that there may be a cow, there may be a dog, a horse coming by, and I don't see it. They go about because the type of thought I entertain in my mind is somehow it's going to make me to really see what I want to see. So we're looking about vasana, this feedback loop. Vasana, desire. The desire brings about, the object, not that it produces it magically, boom. All these objects are produced by Ishvara, as we know, Maya Ishvara. But the desire I have for something will allow me to see these things, whereas some other objects may appear in, but because I'm really want to see my cat, for example, I'm going to see my cat. You understand? So this is the cycle of vasanas, desires, and then objects, which is going to stand and to hold that vasana. The type of thought in the mind also, together with the sense organ, determines the type of objects I wish to contact. Does it make sense, David? Because object, look, David, objects are all over the place. Okay? So what makes me see what I see? Let's see, when we go in the morning and we go into the mirror to brush our teeth in the morning, for example, in the mirror, there may be many things, some spots, some dust, some other things. But if I want to see my teeth when I do like that, I don't see anything else. I don't even see my image. I just see like, I need to do this, So the mind is going to focus on whatsoever object it is holding in mind. It's not that the mind has the power to create reality, some schools like to suggest and make a lot of money with these notions. It's just that it's an unconscious thing that is going to produce desire for objects, and then naturally the object is going to come. It's going to come in contact with the object, not that it produces it. It's just because it's going to grab the object and is going to reject other object. The same way the sense organ grabs, allows us to go through one of those channels which are needed to contact the certain objects, So Does it make sense, David?
But it makes sense when I'm thinking about is there a choice here? Is there a choice about, we're implying that, we have to have a desire just
Yeah.
for an object in order to be able to see it. So is there a choice for us not to desire to see objects? Is that
David, you're always running too far. This comes in the end of the book.
okay?
Well, you know already, huh? Is there free will? This is the most philosophical discussion since the beginning of times. There is, and there isn't. So if we look from the standpoint of Maya and in the macrocosm body of vasanas, it looks like, oh, we are all being driven by our vasanas and we have no power because, we are just puppets. But when we look at from the standpoint of Jiva doing its actions, and then we have free will because every action allows us to a choice, how to respond. And most of us, I have done it for most of my life, we respond just mechanically, meaning to say the vasanas are just pushing me around. The vasanas are determining how to answer. But as we grow in spirituality, we develop the merit to come to the scriptures, and then we understand better what is a human being, and how it responds. So, and then we begin contemplate the notion of responding dharmically or adharmically, and that is already a powerful tool to allows us to choose, because otherwise we are chosen. The vasanas are going to choose. And that's why sometimes we hear Ramji saying that you don't experience an object, you experience your vasanas, because the vasanas are going to determine what we want to experience. But we experience, but we choose when we begin discriminating between Dharma and the Dharma. And then we're gonna go and live a life and experience things that are right, are good, that are for the benefit of the overall Dharma field and life itself.
I mean, is this akin to the thought that we manifest? What our thoughts are, are what we manifest. So, the intent that we think about what our thoughts are based on asanas, and so that's what manifests the objects that come into our life.
Well, we don't manifest. That's why I was trying to avoid this confusion. This idea of manifesting reality is really foolish and foolishness, and it deceives people and make a lot of people rich. That we don't really manifest anything. The only ones manufacturing is Maya Shwara through through the power and the pranas and the elements and the gunas. So what we do is we think, we contemplate, we desire, and then when we least expect, we gain that object. And the object is there among many other objects. The other object that come in front of us, a lot of the times we reject unconsciously. We don't even pay a notice about these objects, And then when you see, oh, okay, I was looking for you, you were looking for the object, and you are just being unconscious to the other objects. You understand? So we do that naturally, and we don't really manifest. We just naturally. We are attracted to the objects, and then we neglect the others until we find it. And it's not to say that we always find it, because there are some laws operating in the field. If you want something that has a little supply, the supply-demand law or scarcity is going to play as well its role. And so therefore it's better not to want things that are too difficult, because life, the happiness that we find through the gain of objects could be resolved, this problem, just by wanting everything that is largely available, and so that you can succeed and you enjoy that Ananda Maya culture from the objects easily, So, but we tend to complicate our lives a little bit, and we want to be a millionaire and maybe now billionaires and so on. But the point here, we don't manifest, we just go about choosing what we want until we begin choosing, what is good, I begin choosing what I want because I want when I want, as Ranji likes to say, until I understand that it's better to choose what's fair, what is just, what is good for the overall, you understand? And when we start choosing that way, we say that we are really exercise our free will, David. Why? Because Ishwara, the causal body, exercise it was mechanically if we don't really use our intelligence to discriminate it, beyond the fleeting pleasures that the gain of certain object may give me. I need to discriminate on an overall and seeing the benefit for my spiritual growth, the benefit for the other beings in my environment. So this is an intelligent way to choose. And then what happens with our vasanas? Our vasanas gradually they are purified, they are transformed. So I begin developing spiritual, dharmic, sattvic vasanas. You understand? So we are not totally helpless. We have the power to make this choice. And we begin doing when we begin breaking with the tyranny of this feedback loop, meaning to say the vasanas choosing for us, until we look at the vasanas and then we look at the results to connect the dots and say, it does not work. I've been doing this and I'm not getting I'm getting trouble and conflict and pain and suffering. So we are intelligent beings and we connect the dots sooner or later. And that is what we call maturity, And then when we least expect, we get in contact with the scriptures, and then our life becomes easier because we have a good manual to guide us until we can be free, knowing ourselves. Okay, but this is something for us to talk at the end. David is very much in a hurry all the time, huh?
And I guess thank you. And I could take us in a different direction too. I have another question, but you may want to table it to some other time, because I was in this discussion. I was thinking that you talk about the 5 elements, and Ishwara is creating, is creating from these 5 elements. Is in this? So to me, the jiva is created of the 5 elements. But
The jiva is created out of the elements. Yeah.
It's created from the 5 elements.
Yeah.
But the jiva, has a spark of consciousness. Yeah. Spark.
Yeah. Let me just say one thing. The 3 bodies of the jiva is created out of the elements, but the atma of the jiva is created out of consciousness and consciousness alone, because jiva atma is paramatma. You understand? So again, making that distinction, the 3 bodies is not the jiva. Go ahead.
Well, I guess that's the answer. That's the question, is the 3 bodies, but then the spark, it actually comes from consciousness, not consciousness. Yeah. It doesn't come from the elements. It's not made up of space or air or water or fire.
Yeah. Right. That is different. Consciousness, the intelligence we enjoy is something that requires the 5 elements. For example, it's this spark, as you say, or reflection, or it happens in the subtle body. Subtle body is extremely sattvic. It means to say there is a lot of sattva there. Okay, so to shine with consciousness, to make that spark, as you said. So this sparkness, this shininess, this human consciousness is original consciousness, because it's so much a reflex on sattva. Sattva is the closest thing to consciousness. When consciousness, due to this power of Maya, comes into the universe, the first thing it becomes is what? Is sattva. And sattva is Ishwara, you understand? It's the revealing power, the intelligence, the knowledge, pure knowledge, a body of pure knowledge and intelligence. So when we the jiva is a reflex of consciousness on the subtle body, and the more sattvic it is, the the constitution of these reflecting apparatus, the subtle body, you understand? The more pure sattvic our mind becomes. So that's why it's so important to develop sattva, not that we are sattva, or not that enlightenment is sattva guna, no. But sattva is what allows us this spark of clear discrimination to the point that we can discriminate consciousness from the three bodies and from the subtle body, you understand?
Okay. Thank you.
Before coming in contact with an object, I, consciousness, and the object were separate. But once they come in contact, I say I'm experiencing an object. Consciousness is called consciousness when it's not in contact with an object. In contact with an object, it's called experience. Experience is another name. Now we are equating consciousness with experience. So consciousness with an experience, of course, it depends Maya, depends Ishvara, depends the Jiva, and depends Jagat. And then once the creation is properly established, and then consciousness becomes experience. So because everything is only a superimposition in consciousness. So if there is an experience, and if the nature of reality is non-duality, and if all there is consciousness with receiving these projections, and then if within the projector there is an experience, this experience can only be consciousness experience itself, of course. So consciousness becomes an experience when it's in contact with the object. So it's said in this Panchadhati that it's the relational status of consciousness. It's another name of consciousness. And it is from this angle that we say that consciousness, experience as well is consciousness. What so? Consciousness is non-dual. Yes, consciousness experiencing itself in this apparent order of reality. Okay, because everything is consciousness. Consciousness is called consciousness. Experience is another name of consciousness. Experience is a relational status of consciousness. When a sound comes, I say, I experience the music, for example. No? So far, so good. If discrete experience or just experience itself appearing in many guises, so this is good. Discrete experience or just experience. There is only one experience, which is consciousness experience itself through the power of Maya. Maya produces the elements produce properties, and then experience all these different kind of discrete objects. And the discrete experience happens through the mind of the jiva. Okay, the jiva is going to say like, this is my experience of water. This is my experience of the cat, and so on. Yeah? But basically, there is only experience, which is consciousness under the spell of Maya. And Maya does what? Maya project name, colors, and forms in this consciousness that we are. And then consciousness has an experience of name, colors, and forms. So if we want to keep it simple, every experience is consciousness experience, name, colors, and forms. But then we have the mind, and every jiva mind is unique in its setup. And then every mind is going to make a different interpretation of similar experience, I mean, we can experience through an object, which is nothing but different properties. We can have an experience, and then the jiva is going to interpret it differently. And then we have this discrete, unique experience, but basically it's just consciousness experiencing the five elements, or better said, the properties of Maya, the three gunas and the elements, which are the development of the gunas. So this discrete experience are just a disguise. It is experience, it's consciousness appearing in many guises. So consciousness gets disguised by different objects of experience. But basically, as we said, if we separate myself from the experience, so I'm alone as consciousness, as we know. Yeah? Standing myself alone is called liberation. So what does that mean? So if I can discriminate myself from the experience, there was a time in the last few years since I began sharing this knowledge that I used to break it down very simply to the discrimination that we do to free ourselves from these superimpositions is to discriminate consciousness from one's experience, consciousness from one's experience. So you just keep discounting the experience because consciousness very, very often, I mean, all the time is getting confused with its experience, you know? So in every jiva gets confused with its discrete experience. Oh yeah, who are you? So let me remember my experience and which is going to make up my life history and you know and so on. So we need to discount all of that and standing as consciousness alone, separating myself from all this experience that gives me the illusion of being this set of experience. This is called discrimination, viveka. So this is viveka, discriminate consciousness from the experience. So another way to look at it is that we want to discriminate on a more subtle level. We want to discriminate consciousness from the intellect, from the mind. You know? And experience happens in the mind. So if we say like, let's, you know, discriminate myself from my experience, and then I have to go and discriminate myself from this experience, that experience, but all experience happens in the mind and not apart from it, you know. It happens in the mind and the mind is not apart from consciousness. So it's also another way, just say, discriminate myself from the mind through which experience takes place. Experience takes place through the mind, the intellect. It requires the mind, the subtle body and the jiva. So to contact the objects and have experience. And as we know, going back to that original question of David today, is object can be physical, material, gross object, but they can be what? They can be thoughts as well. You remember the teaching. An object and the thought of the object is the same. The thought is going to generate the object in every sense of the word here. The thought, collective, you know, as the collective mind of God is going to keep producing the object. So the thought and the thought of the object and the object is the same from different angles. We can determine that. And that, what I'm saying that? I'm saying that because of the thoughts. Oh, I was going to go somewhere with it very nicely, but then I got distracted trying to open a side explanation. You know? Let's see if it comes back. Standing myself alone is called liberation, separating myself. So discriminating myself from the mind. So the mind is our primary instrument to experiencing the world. So when we discriminate from the mind itself, okay, and then we are indirectly discriminating from every discrete experience because every discrete experience happens in the mind, you know, and within the mind, and the mind exists within consciousness. So the trick here is how to discriminate consciousness from the intellect, you know. And then we go through the trouble of breaking it down and say, let's discriminate consciousness from the 5 sheets, from the 3 bodies, from the states, and from this and from that. But if we want a shortcut, David, you being very fast and having no time to lose, so you just discriminate consciousness from your intellect, your primary instrument to experience the world of name, colors, and forms, you know. But it's a little more subtle. And if you want to go even beyond that, you can discriminate yourself from the 3 energies, the 3 gunas, you know, which is even more. Ranji likes to present this concept about, you know, managing the gunas and discriminate yourself from the gunas, but it's a little bit more subtle because the gunas, they are deposited in the unconscious mind, you know. There are different ways we can separate ourselves as consciousness, and that's why Vedanta is very simple but very subtle. And the subtlety of Vedanta, of this discrimination, it makes it a little bit more difficult and requires more time to make the mind subtle, in other words. Am I going too fast?
I don't think so. And I'm just thinking that if we all experience things differently, so everybody has experiences, and every jiva experiences, differently. But what we have in common is the fact that we have experiences. The process of having experience is what we have in common,
Yeah.
not maybe the experience
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah.
And so if we're
Yeah.
looking for common elements, what
Yeah.
draws us together is how this happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, you got it. Everybody wants to has experience. Everybody experience according to one's desires, vasanas, and so on. And even if we experience the same object, everybody experiences it slightly different because the way subjectively we experience, we interpret that experience. You understand? But the bottom line, that what I'm trying to make a point here, is that our desire for experience is there in the first place because we love to experience our existence. You understand? Human beings, we have this love to exist, love to be. Sagadatta Maharaj used to say that it is this love to be that takes us to our final destination, because we want to be, we want to exist. Then we just need to understand, what is this existence? What is this being that we enjoy so much to experience? We want to experience ourselves, That is the love we have. The love for experience is the love we have for ourselves, our existence, our conscious existence, which makes us want to live forever. Right, Ruth? The fundamental error. If you are asked if you have one experience or many experiences each day, you will say that you have many experiences. If you ask if you have one experience and many experiences each day, you will say, oh no, I have so many experiences. It was very intense. But this is not true. You only have one experience appearing as many experiences as objects present themselves to you. It's a matter of experience that as the objects change, the I, the consciousness that witness them does not change. So it feels like I'm experiencing many objects, but as I said before, I am experiencing myself, because the object come and go, come and go, come and go, and I'm all the time so distracted, extroverted towards the object that I say, oh my God, the experience has changed. But the most fundamental experience is the experience of my own existence. I'm experiencing consciousness. And because I experience consciousness, I also have the superimposition of objects. Instead, we keep discounting this consciousness. So this is what we experience. We experience consciousness. The consciousness, that which witness all the object, does not change. But it seems that I change because the objects present themselves, they keep changing. And then again, we think, like, oh my God, there is so much change here, and then we believe that I am changed. My conscious existence is changed. No, the mind may be changing. The sensations, the emotions are changing, but I'm not changing. If you remove the object, you will see that consciousness does not change. And that is a dangerous statement, because then everybody begins trying to be a yogi and remove the world of object and say, hey, Shwada, you made a mistake. You made this huge universe with so many objects. And now I have the trouble to remove these objects. Removing these objects is not a physical action. It says in the following phrase, we want to subtract the object but it does not mean to become a yoga and go into samadhi yoga for the rest, samadhi, Nirvikalpa samadhi for the rest of our life. Removing objects is not a physical action. Normally, when you are in contact with an object that you don't like, you try to remove it. Isn't it true? Physically. If we have an object and they say, "Ooh, geez, one again," no way, I'm out of here. No? You just remove the object. So physically, we know how to remove ourselves from objects that we don't like. And the big trouble is to remove ourselves from the objects we love, and then we easily get attached. Not to say that we get attached to what we don't like as well, So the vasana is a vasana. It's a vasana for attraction or repulsion, but it's there, giving us a troubled intellect, a troubled mind. Objects that I like are never really a big problem. There is no need to separate myself. So I like it. I don't need to reject it. I don't need to push it out. But at the same time, I run into different trouble. What's the trouble? So I like it so much that I want to live forever with this object until I get bored, and then I want something else. So attachments is something that causes a lot of trouble and makes it difficult for us to purify the mind, as we know. Object that I like are never big trouble. Trying to separate yourself from an object or to gain an object, for that matter, means that you believe you are bound to the object, even though in reality you are not. So if we try to push objects or to gain object, to attract object, running for or running from object means that we are caught up in samsara. We are bound to objects. As we said before, we are bound to objects of repulsion and attraction, and that we're going to keep running to gain, running to avoid our entire lives. So this is all due to this misunderstanding that the objects are real first. They're really valuable. They contain ananda, they contain happiness, and I am incomplete and I need to gain these objects to solve this problem. So this is all based on samsara, this intellectual, emotional condition. Means that you believe you are bound, that you need the object, even though you are free and you are full, whole, and complete, and you are not bound and you are not needy of anything because you are consciousness, you are not the vasanas. The vasanas need what it needs. Huh? A vasana is a need for something. If we believe that we are talking before the confusion between the gunas and the vasanas, discriminating myself from my vasanas before they become a conscious desire, and then later on an experience. So let's discriminate from our vasana. The vasana is a need for something, and when it's too strong, we even feel it. We realize it before it becomes a conscious desire. So we feel like I need it, but in reality, we do not need, because the vasanas need. But we have already established that I'm not my vasanas, right? I'm not my experience, and I'm not that power that dictates me to go and find this or that object. No? So knowing that I'm not my vasanas, because I'm not my my causal body, allows us to also do this discrimination effectively. Trying to contact an object, trying to maintain contact with an object, or trying to sever contact with an object to which you feel bound is painful. It's big painful. So what is this to sever? Trying to sever contact? You guys?
Sever, it sort of means to cut from.
Oh, sever is to run away, to cut from.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Trying to contact an object, trying to maintain, or trying to run from it, it's very painful. We feel like I'm bound to this, And it disturbs the mind totally, makes us emotionally unbalanced, weak. Mm. So, and when we really analyze this running to gain things, and avoid things, it's it's very complex, because in the process of running to gain something, there is a lot of pain, you know. There is a lot of pain before we get bound to the object of desire. So the very process of gaining it, it's stressful. We need to go through competition and so on, and work extras hours sometimes, and so we have the trouble of gain. And then when we gain something, and then we think like, okay, now I have succeeded, I got it, but then we have the problem of, now how I'm going to keep it. You remember Krishna says, turn your mind to me, Arjuna, and I will take care of your gaining and keeping, because keeping is a huge problem. Everything is going south, as Ramji often says. You have to keep getting and keeping it, and so it's trouble. You have to gain, you have to keep, or you have to all the time keep pushing it. It's very, very stressful and painful. I consciousness, I'm never bound to objects, and I have no desire for object, although it seems as if I am, because the objects appears in me, and I have not called that for. It's just the play of Maya, Ishvara. Maya Ishvara produced this object, and these objects, they happens to be within the scope of consciousness. And how these objects come in contact with consciousness, we just saw it through the sense organs and the mind of the jiva. So Ishvara produces the object, the sense organ, the mind, and then consciousness appears to be bound to the object, because the objects are projecting consciousness 24/7. But if we analyze our experience carefully, we understand that I'm not bound to object. This is all a superimposition of this apparent order of reality, no? As we know. I consciousness am never bound to objects, although it seems as if I am. The object may be bound to me, but I'm not bound to the object. Huh? The object may be bound to space, but space does not give a damn. Space is just there. I mean, you may have a good laugh. They say, oh, these people, they think that they can stick to me. They will never stick to me, because I am one of this pan, this frying pan, stick-free pan, nothing sticks. Okay. I consciousness am never bound to objects, although it may seem to. Both gaining and removing or pushing object is a mental action, because there is no action connection between me, consciousness, and the experienced object, owing to the fact that the self and the objects are in different orders of reality. So how about that? That takes care of the problem as well. You see, David? So now we have another tool here. So let's discriminate ourselves from Mithya. Mithya is a different order of reality. It's something that exists, but it's not real. You understand? So we can just discriminate ourselves from everything that exists within Mithya. And because Mithya belongs to a different order of reality, it does not affect Satya. So then we go back to this, simple discrimination between the subject and object. All objects are Mithya. Understand? Everything is Mithya. So I have no problem with the objects that they are superimposed on my conscious awareness through my mind, because I know that object belongs to Mithya and I belong to Satya. Although my instrument of experience belongs to Mithya, but I belong to Satya. You understand? So, and then we understand both two different orders of reality. The same way in the dream, we can have certain experience in the dream, that does not leak to the bedroom, you know. You're in your bedroom, and then if you experience something in your dream, it does not leak. It does not leak to your bedroom. If it's very, very hot and sunny in the beach, and if it's the winter and it's very cold in your bedroom, so the light and the heat is not going to warm up the winter room. You understand? Why? There are two different orders of reality. So the same is with ourselves and the experience that happens in us. It appears that it's impacting and changing us, but it's not. The same way that the heat in the dream, it does not affect the cold in my bedroom when I'm dreaming. If you are sentient and the objects are inert, you are sentient and the objects are inert. So you are sentient. You see the scripture, they give us these compliments again and again. They say, you are sentient, Jivatma. You are conscious existence, Jivatma. That's why you are sentient. You understand? Everything else is just inert. So you are Satya, Jivatma. That's what you say. You are sentient. And everything that can be objectified by you, including your mind, body complex, body-mind complex, it's just meteor. It's an object. So you are sentient. Letting go of the belief that the objects are impacting or attaching themselves to you is when you understand the nature of attachment, is called discrimination. Very nice. So letting go of this sense, this misapprehension, this misbelief or interpretation that the objects are really sticking to me is discrimination. You understand? You understood that I am Satya. We need to define ourselves again and again and again, define ourselves. You know, I'm the light of consciousness illumining this intellect, which, you know, is going to illumine. It's the field of interaction, the field of action created by consciousness, by Maya. You know? So letting go of attachment to objects when you understand your nature and the nature of attachment is called discrimination. Why? I'm not going to allow these mistaken notions that the objects are attaching to me and changing me because I am a discriminating person. I have been in contact with descriptions. And this discrimination is tantamount to freedom. As we know, discrimination requires certain qualifications, you know, and the most intertwined with discrimination is dispassion. You know, dispassion and discrimination, they go hand in hand. It's very difficult to discriminate if we do not understand the limitation and the defects of the objects, in the sense they don't have the value that we project on them. We develop dispassion. When we have dispassion, and then it's very easy to reject the object, meaning to say, discriminate. I mean, to discriminate properly, we need to have this understanding of the reality and the limitation of ananda, of happiness we may get from object. So it's both go together, discrimination and dispassion. Dispassion is going to favor discrimination, and discrimination is going to favor dispassion, because you are discriminate the values. What is valuable here? I consciousness or this beautiful ice cream, you know, or gelato italiano, you know, or a new relationship or whatever, you know. So that is dispassion and discrimination. So far, so good? Definition of an object. Vedanta is extremely fussed about the meaning of words. One need not look farther than sloppy word usage to understand why modern non-dual teachings are so ineffective. Yeah. So the Vedanta uses a very, very precise language, and I know by now, you know, over these years, how careful we need to be with the usage of language, because Vedanta is trying to discriminate and determine the identity of the individual through analysis and logic. And the languages used should never be action, experience-based language. And in the spiritual world, most of the words are based on action and experience. And not having much of a clue of what the self is, they present so many notions that are based on some mystical epiphanies or things like that, which are as vague as most epiphanies are. You understand? And they keep presenting those descriptions of epiphanies as enlightenment. And this is my credential. I had this epiphany, this epiphany. And as we know, epiphany is not going to help. Description of epiphany is never going to help anybody else, because knowledge can be transmitted, but experience is a very subjective phenomenon. I had an experience and I don't even know how to get back to that experience. In fact, my trouble is that I keep trying to duplicate that experience, but that is within Ishvara, power to produce certain experience. So the spiritual world is stuffed, filled with vague, abstract, confusing notions. And here and there you find some fragments of Vedanta, of the Upanishads and the Gita here and there. So we need to know how to define what is an object. That's the topic here. And we need to use words for that. And it's very simple to define an object. Let's see if this is what it is here. Anyhow, what is an object, David? You being an expert by now. So what is the definition of an object?
Well, I guess I think an object is anything, well, he says it in here, I'm sorry.
You are reading, yeah?
So I just saw that highlighted in there, and so it gave me the answer.
Yeah.
An object is anything other than me.
Yeah.
And so it's just, it's interesting. It's just this notion of experiencing objects is what links, it kind of ties it together. So it's something different than me.
Yeah.
And yet you're still experiencing it.
Yeah. Experience requires the duality: subject, the jiva subject, the mind, and an object. So this is the fundamental duality. Okay. So and an object. So why we define object? Because we understood, and the whole the logic here is how experience takes place. It takes place through the mind. It begins with consciousness, and then Mr. Maya comes into the play. And then we have the mind, we have the sense organs, and then we have the object, okay? So now we understood that the key factor here is to discriminate between ourselves and the object. So of course we need to define properly what is I, the I that we refer to when we want to discriminate ourselves from the object, okay? But we need to have a good definition of what an object is as well, because if we want to reject the object, I have to understand what is the object, what the hell is this? I remember many years ago, I was invited to do a talk in São Paulo, in Brazil. And I did not have experience. I went there and the people were very entry-level people. And I did a long 1 hour talk about subject and object and so on. In the end, I was all happy. And then very, very soon I heard people telling me here and there that nobody understood anything. Neither I understood anything. The guy told me that, I thought I did a great job and nobody understood anything. So what is an object? You tell people, you go tell people at entry level that you have to discriminate yourself from the object. They don't know what this I discriminating mean and what the objects are. And they say, no, object is anything other than yourself. People, they're going to scratch their hand and say, oh my God, this is not simple. Huh? So it's because you have been around Vedanta since a while, but the goal here, what we want to understand clearly is what is an object, and a simple way to understand what is an object I have found over the years is anything that can be objectified by the mind. So if I'm objectifying it, if I am experiencing it, if I'm witnessing it, if I'm knowing it, I'm something other than the experienced object, the objectified object, the known object. So it's everything that comes within the scope of my mind, which is an experience, object of experience, that can be objectified, is an object. And an object can be gross and can be subtle as well. And it can be very complex. Sometimes an object is a karma, is a circumstantial situation, karma, And why I know that this big situation here involved many things and people and, and condition, it's an object because I can objectify that, So it becomes a little subtle, but in the end of the day, what is an object? What is the most fundamental object? Experience. Experience, not the discrete experience, but all experience, consciousness in contact with the world of Maya, So an experience is an object. Oh, but an experience, no, it's impossible. It was a wonderful experience. I was blissed out and, I have this expansion and, I became one with the universe. So you cannot call it an experience. No way. You are trying to put me down. Destroy my enlightenment here. No, it is an experience. Why? Because you have experienced it and you are remembering now, and you are believing that you are an object of experience. You understand? If we get confused with the objects, and then we're in trouble because the objects change. They are time bound, and they appear, disappear, and not only they're all the time changing. So an object is also something that is always changing. The subject never changes. And then we have to say like, okay, so and then the objects appear in the mind. Is the mind an object? Of course it is an object. Of course it's an object. Why? The mind changes. I can't see it very clearly, because it's very subtle object, but it changes. It has different feelings and emotions and sensations and thoughts. Thoughts are just moving along in my mind, in the screen of the mind. So the mind is an object. Why? Because it's changing. If I cannot objectify the mind because the mind is too subtle, and then we have to use the tool, say anything that changes is an object. So how about the intellect? Vijnana Maya Kosha. So the intellect is the meditator. The intellect is the subtle meditator, the one who is really witnessing everything and determining. Yes, but the intellect changes as well. We know that. We say, oh my God, my intellect was so, damn, and I couldn't understand anymore. My intellect was tamasic. So the intellect is changing as well. And the moment that I say that my intellect was sharp, my intellect was sattvic or rajasic, I was so agitated, my intellect was all over the place, So it's already experienced, known, and objectified by consciousness, So there is something in our experience that does not change, and that is not an object. The vasana is an object. Why? I say, oh my God, this vasana again, I can't stand this vasana anymore. It only gives me trouble. So we have an objectification of these vasanas because we can link the vasanas with the desires or aversions and the whole shebang of, of the conflicts that sometimes those vasanas may bring. Papa karma, if it's not a good vasana, So anything that can be objectified, experienced, seen, known, anything other than myself, as Ramji likes to say, anything other than myself. And who is this I? The subject conscious principle. It's not the intellect. This I, this consciousness subject principle is a non-experiencing entity. And that's where people get a little bit like, oh my God, I don't want this I want the experiencing guy. I don't want the non-experienced guy because I want enlightenment, because I want to go about experiencing. You understand? But this enlightenment, which is just self-knowledge or discrimination, is understand your true nature so that you can go around experiencing as long as you want, because you're going to have a much better time once you know that you do not change. You understand? The experience agent will be there, and I'm being free from the experience agent. So I can have a good time because I experience knowing that I do not change and that I am limitless consciousness. Now let's see what they say here about the object, the definition of the object. Vedanta is extremely fussy about the meaning of words. One need not look further than slop word of use in this modern non-dual teaching. The vagueness and contemporary teaching do not only hides the fact that the teachers do not have any personal means of knowledge. That's a fact. Yeah, it's unbelievable when you hear. When I remember all the teachers I went in contact before they came to Vedanta, and what they say, and I always suspect that they did not know anything about moksha or self-knowledge, because everything they would say anything, and they got used to get away with anything they say. I mean, it could be something very, very abstract and stupid. But as we say, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, and that's exactly the fact. Before we go off half-cooked talking about liberation, we need to have our definitions in order. An object is anything other than me, the subject. My body appears as an object in me. My feelings appear in me as an object because I know my feelings. They too are objects, as are my thoughts, beliefs, and opinions. Beliefs and opinions belongs to the intellect. Although anything that I experience is an object, including the past, present, and future. No, absolutely anything that I experience is an experienced object, always. Any experience is an object being experienced. An experience is an object. Experience itself is an object known to me. So this is the most fundamental desire we have for this object called experiencing our own self, our own existence. So this is the desire, this is the vasana. I mean, many years ago, I had this contemplation, then I came to Ramji. I said, oh, Ramji, look at that. I understood that the desire for experience is the most primordial vasana of existence. And you say, wow, that's very nice, Yes, it's the vasana of all vasanas, experience. Everybody wants to experience. And now I'm adding something to it. Everybody has a vasana to experience one's own existence, and we really love it, and it's all right that we love it, provided we know what our true existence is. Yeah, we are not the body-mind complex. The knowledge I am the non-experienced witness consciousness is freedom. The one pursuit lying behind our myriad pursuits. When we use the word freedom, we mean freedom from dependence on objects. So that's very important. So this is just closing everything here. We define object because freedom ultimately is freedom from object, so that we can not get confused or begin define ourselves by the means of the object. and ending up feeling very limited, you know. Freedom means freedom from dependence on object. This is another word here. Dependence is very good because we cannot free ourselves from the object because the objects are going to appear in consciousness, but then we're going to be not dependent on the object because they appear in consciousness as consciousness being superimposed, name, colors, and forms. It's just me, it's just consciousness and the superimposition. Huh? So it's understand the objects, they are going to keep appearing, but I no longer believe in their reality, and I no longer depend on them. I do not lean on the object as a source of purna, fullness, satisfaction, and so on. It's not terribly difficult to understand that I am free of material objects because it's quite obvious that they are not me, although this fact does not prevent attachment to them. Yeah. Oh, yes, of course, I'm not my car. Who has made this scratch in my car today, you know? I'm not my car, I have no doubt, you know. I know the, the limitations of my body and the body of my car, but if I see a little scratch there, and then some attachment shows, huh? Oh no, my new car. So we know we are not this physical gross object, but we cannot prevent some identification and attachment to them. But when it comes to subtle bodies like thoughts, feelings, emotions, and notions, and then attachments are very subtle and difficult to be exposed. So attachment to objects is the problem, and freedom from this attachment is discrimination and moksha. So not be attached to them. They are going to keep showing up, especially the ones in our mind, or the objects they appear in the mind, even when we go to sleep in the dream states and so on. Even sometimes we are awake and walking, and we experience our pratibhastika very intensely, you know. So our subjective reality. So it's difficult to expose these very subtle attachments to the subtle world of objects. One object, I believe, actually is particularly difficult to separate from me. The idea that I need to become something to validate myself. This is a very subtle one. Oh yes, you know. Oh, enlightenment, self-realization requires to become a better me. So this is something that can easily become a trap because this notion, the attachment to this notion, may keep the person forever purifying and becoming a better me, a better jiva, and so on. So freedom comes from no attachments, not even to the idea of purification, you know, and refinement of the intellect. We just need to refine a little bit to understand that we are not attached to our mental condition. We are not attached to our spiritual status or anything, you know, or anything that is the human consciousness or human mind. The idea that I need to become something great, big, yeah, pure, smart, intelligent, wise, all these ideas, those are objects that we keeps us attached to. And this is an object of betterment, the idea of becoming a better me. As soon as we are able to speak and comprehend the meaning of words, our parents ask us, what we want to become when we grow up? So this is the idea of becoming, and nobody is going to satisfy anybody else because the whole society has expectations, which is set up to make us feel, to make human beings, the jivas, feel inadequate, you know? So because our parents, with the best possible intention, they are victims of this ignorance. You need to become someone like Jesus, you know, or like Buddha or something like that. You know? So, and then everybody is going to feel inadequate because we are never good enough. You ask me about feeling of inadequacy. I lived it so intensely in my childhood in the early days. So this is our parents give us this why they were born out of ignorance, they grow in ignorance, they pass it on the ignorance, and somehow we cannot blame them because they received that, you know. It is the heritage we get from our society. It's called a vidya, total spiritual ignorance. Ignorance in regards to Dharma, and ignorance in regards to the true nature of reality. And nobody's good enough. Everybody, if the family is materialistic, and then you need to be very rich, more famous, you know, more successful, and so on. No wonder every human being experiences this sense of inadequacy. Until this moment, it never occurred that we weren't fine as we are. But this moment, when we come to Vedanta, Vedanta says, oh, you know, the jiva, the body-mind complex, is beautiful as it is. As it is, you know, when you in the United States, I lived there for some time, when you buy something used, it say, oh, it's as it is. You cannot complain, you know. Somebody brought it back. It's almost new, but it's as it is. So when we are born and we grow, so we are what we are. Ishvara has made us as we are, as it is. You know? And then when we come to Vedanta, Vedanta not only establishes our nature as consciousness, which is beyond, you know, all of these configurations of the three elements, you know, of the five elements and the three energies, but also it gives a great compliment and release and relief and rest to the jiva. Say, jiva, you are beautiful, just the way you were made by the Lord Ishvara. You know, your life is a gift, and the Lord has made you just the way you are. So if you have some attitudes, or it's just Ishvara made you like that. So if you are suffering with that, so try to change to the best of your ability. But the jiva is invited to feel at ease once we get in contact with Vedanta, you know? And then slowly we begin claiming our primary true our true identity, nature as consciousness, of course. Until this moment, until we met Vedanta, it never occurred that I was beautiful as I was born and as I am. But from this moment on, usually until the day we die, we are forever trying to be something that we aren't. We need to become, until the day we are 1 or 2 years, when people say, don't. Now, have you heard about don't? There is a boy that he grew up, and then the first day he went to the school, his name was Rich. He went to the school, and then the teacher say, okay, my boy, tell me your name. He said, don't. Because, I mean, everybody was telling him, don't, you know? So, I mean, after some time, you feel like there is really something wrong, because anything I do is somehow inadequate here, you know? I must be inadequacy, incarnate as myself, you know? Okay, something we need to become more, etc., etc., etc. To become fulfilled in love, etc. Please do not forget this definition of object, because it is a sense of self-inquiry. Object is anything that changes, and it is objectified, it's known and experienced by you, and you are free from that object of experience. Although it appears that the object is impacting, changing us, it does not change us. It feels so because we have got confused with the mind, with the primary instrument to experience. It does not change us. So we are that which does not change, and everything that comes within the scope of my mind is objectified by me consciousness through my mind. Okay, 5:30. Before we go into the non-existence, the void, which is a very nice subject, I would say we could see if we have any contributions or questions or anything. How are you doing, Claudio?
Hello, good.
Good?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, man.
You look a little sleepy today. Are you awake?
Yeah. It's 9:30, and normally I go early to bed. So
Okay.
it's fine. It's hard for me, but it's hard. I have always to see again the video.
Yeah, I have a hard time to do this in the evening as well for me. After 8:30, it's very difficult. My mind gets tamasic.
Yeah, a little bit anamasic for me now, but it's very rich. This even the first lesson, and now also very rich of
Yeah, it's
things that I
fun.
have to everything new for me. Like it's not new, but it sounds like I say I have to study this again and again. I have to
Yes.
see it tomorrow because it's so rich, no?
Yeah, Pancha
Things
does.
like
Pancha does
different
take
from
us
Vedanta Shingamani.
a little deeper into the waters of Vedanta gradually, you know. And how is my old friend Gert that I'm so pleased to see back in our Sangha? How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Yes, same as actually what Mario said. Have a hard time keeping my focus.
I see.
It's past my bedtime, but I'm good.
Yeah.
Yes,
Wonderful.
and I'm really enjoying to read the Panchadasi again. I love this text.
Good. So maybe there is shall we reconsider our timing? Because it's 8 p.m. European time, which brings it to noon in Carbondale and other areas in USA. To me, I can adjust it. I mean, if you guys would prefer, because there is Mark as well, which is from Europe, we could reconsidering to do at 7 p.m. Europe time.
I can do it earlier. I don't know if David and Karen are tied to lunch hours, but
Well,
I can do it earlier.
Now it's noon there, huh? David?
Well, like I said, I've set up my schedule to make this time available. So
Right.
I had to change my meetings in order to be able to be here.
Yeah.
I could do it. It just might take me a week or two.
Okay, so we can consider it for our European friends. Yeah.
Yeah, I needed advance notice because I scheduled Zoom meetings that go until 11 o'clock. So if we move it to 11 o'clock, then I'm going to be either late class. I'm going to be late for class most of the time, and that's okay. But I will likely be late because I don't want to shortchange my clients.
Yeah, that's okay. So it's just an idea. So I'm going to put it in the email I sent to you, and I may ask you to give us a feedback. If it's difficult, we keep it as it is. Yeah, and because Claudio and Mark and Gert can always somehow develop the habit to go to bed 1 hour later as well, right?
Take a nap.
That will work. I'll make some good strong coffee before the lesson starts.
Okay. So anything else? How are you doing, Karen? Did you follow the class today? You are with us today?
Yes. I just have, some things I'm trying to finish up for my taxes, and I kind of listening and doing things at the same time today. I had to, but thank you. It was good.
Okay. It's called multitasking.
Not a good idea.
Okay. So David, our official.
I don't usually.
Yeah, because as we know, there isn't such a thing as multitasking because the mind can hold one thought at a time. What we usually do is we go from one thing to another thing, one thing to another thing, and then we can do a little bit of both things simultaneously. But to the detriment of both things, we end up there is more room for missing out on both activities, you know. David, you are our official questioner. You have no further questions today. Are we dismissed, or you want to?
No, I had questions answered earlier. That was fun. Thank you for doing that. So,
Okay, okay. Then we meet on Thursday. And Thursday, what we do, David, is the same book, on the second chapter. Thursday, Q&A based on the other book.
that's the big picture. The big
Yeah,
picture.
the big picture.
Not
Yeah.
this book.
Yeah. Okay. Same
Yeah,
format.
yeah. Okay.
Okay, dokie.
Okay.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, my friends. Great pleasure meeting again with you. We meet again soon, Ishvara willing. Much love.
Thank you. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.